Hello, everyone, and welcome to week number two of, I guess, would that be two or four? Welcome to week two of Education 380, Education 500. Hope you had a great first week of classes. Dr. Allen here. I'm actually coming to you from my home office, recording this over the weekend. So, wanted to get it out. I said each week we'd have a video, and of course, this is our second one. Um, I also did promise to keep these kind of succinct, so I will go ahead and get going and try to not get distracted. So let's go ahead and roll down here and see what we got. Whoops. By the way, as I'm kind of cruising down here, just a heads up on everything. The stuff with the Google Arts and Cultures were great. It was like kind of nice seeing what everyone's background is and where everyone's coming from, interest, hobbies, things like that. Again, being an asynchronous class, it just helps me kind of put names to faces or majors with names and so on. So thank you very much. I did a really early burst through on those and got a lot done, I think, up through Thursday. Today, I'm actually recording this on Saturday. I will try to have those all posted, blogs and everything, no later than Tuesday morning, so you have some grades showing. I think that was a pretty straightforward one. This week, you kind of got a layout of what that was going to entail. This week, we're going to kind of do a similar thing where you're going to have the tech actually be part of the 10 points. So you'll have a 10-point tech, you'll have a discussion post, and then you'll have a blog. So with that all being said, let's go ahead and look. As you can see, we're going to talk a little bit about 21st century skills. That'll be a very quick jump in, jump out, but I do want to at least kind of acknowledge those. We'll talk a little bit too about integrating technology in the classroom. And what I mean by that is we're going to talk about websites today. I'll save that until when I pull up the PowerPoint and kind of cruise through it. But just to kind of give you an idea of why I like to make these websites, websites are a nice way to kind of get a lot of this class is just intuitive, where you have to kind of mess around with things a little bit to figure it out. I think that's a big skill to have as a teacher. Um, the websites are something that I think kind of allows you to do that. So, and I'll get into that a little more here in a minute or two. The reading is from Tech Like a Pirate. It's about the fail approach. That's what your discussion board will be about, basically about trial and error, especially with technology. Um, so I'll say this a million times, but your assignments this week are going to be the tech, which is going to be a website creation, discussion post, and then a review of the blog. I'm sorry, a review of the website assignment via a blog. Uh, One other thing, it's not a required assignment, but I would highly recommend doing it. If you do not have a Google account, I would go ahead and make a Google account this week. The reason why I say that, when we start to work with these other technologies and even some today, you have to create accounts. If you have a Google account, it's just so much easier. You can just log in via Google. You don't have to for any of them. You can create separate accounts, but you're going to have to remember the passwords and everything. So I would recommend making a Google account, but that's just me. I have a feeling probably about 99% of everyone in this class already has one. If you're like me, I have like three for some reason. So anyway, let's go ahead and jump in. Sorry if I'm coughing a little bit. I'm actually going to get a drink. This is the one, no, just one take. With the weather changing, I've been coughing just a little bit, but I don't feel too bad. Alrighty, let's go on down to week number two and see what we got going. This week, we're going to do the website, we're going to do the blog, and we're going to do discussion. They are all right here. So let's just go ahead and jump into the PowerPoint without a lecture. Some weeks I will not have PowerPoint. Sometimes I do, but I do like it a little bit for this week just to kind of give you a little bit of background. Go ahead and expand that a little bit so we can see it. I'm going to probably go through this a little quick to kind of stay in between that 15 to 20-minute range with the filming. But if I get a little quick, I may jump back. So with that being said, websites, I have e-planning. I'm not going to talk about that this week. I have that a little bit later. Some of this unit, and I'll just go ahead and do this little disclaimer. When I started doing this class, believe it or not, it was before the pandemic, and websites and classrooms were still kind of a thing. With so many learning management systems like Schoology and Canvas and things like that, they kind of have embedded websites. So you don't see separate websites for teachers quite as often as you used to. You still do see them. Same goes with e-planning, where when I was, before I came to Shepherd, I had something called planbook.com. I loved it. I'll show some images of it later in the classes when we get there. It'll be a few weeks from now. But it was something I liked. Again, Schoology and things like that kind of have those embedded in them now. So they've kind of, they're not quite as in vogue, but I still like to do this just to kind of get everyone going with the technology. I will say this, there are advantages to having websites. We're going to talk about 21st century skills. I'll jump back and get into that a little bit. Actually, you know what? Instead of me just sitting here yakking about them, let me do this. When you hear 21st century skills, let me just go ahead and show you because it's not going to take that long. I'll reference these. They're actually something that you'll see in some assignments, but the easiest way to say this, way back in the year 2000, probably a little bit before in 1999, everyone was trying to think of skills that educators and students and everyone was going to need to succeed in the new millennium. Of course, now we're over a quarter of the way through the new millennium, and you're seeing, and sorry, I was trying to get that off there. And these skills, they still come up. You'll hear 21st century skills once in a while. Honestly, when you see them, you're going to realize they're kind of what's old is new again. These are things that people have been talking about probably for the last like 100 years, honestly. But 21st century skills are a lot of different things, as you can see: critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, communication, information literacy, media literacy, technology, flexibility, leadership, social skills, productivity. These are just the skills that you want your students to get. Of course, for our class, the technology literacy is a big one. But honestly, in terms of employing in the class, and we'll do this in an assignment later in November, uh, these are usually considered the big four. Actually, these four, the ones below the first four, usually are kind of like subcategories. But critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication, those are all things that, in terms of using technology, we're hoping to improve for students. So just a quick one, ways to improve critical thinking. As a social studies teacher, we always use inquiry-based approaches and all to kind of expand, digging down besides just that rote, just like memorization type thing. Creativity, there's tons of ways to get creative with technology. Again, we're going to do a little bit of that with the websites. Collaboration, we'll talk about this again down the road a little bit. But if you think about how people utilize Google Classroom and some of the Google tools, such as creating slides among groups and things like that, and even communication, how we relay information. I guess I'm kind of doing that right now, recording a video via Zoom and posting it on YouTube. So, there's ways to get into that, but these are the skills. If you want to check them out a little more, go for it. Now, let's jump back up to the PowerPoint, if I can. And I'll hit that back out there. Boom. Sorry if you see me like looking at my computer weird. I'm on my old Mac. It's been a war horse, but it is definitely in its dying days. And sometimes I get a little worried because it's a little slow in opening things. So anyway, back to classroom websites, which is what you're going to do this week. Why would you need a website in your classroom? And again, I'm going to show you some services that do this, but some of the learning management systems offer this, like I say, Schoology, Canvas, and things like that. I don't know if all school districts pay for the service, but you sometimes can get these with those. But there are a lot of advantages, both for students and teachers, in terms of the use. For a teacher using a website, it's a paperless classroom. I think we've really transitioned to that a lot. I'm sure maybe you had teachers that still were like this, but as someone who once upon a time used to have tons of folders where my students were going in there, and there was always the argument, no, I turned that in. And I'd be like, no, you didn't. Oh, yes, I did. I put it in the folder. You kind of can get away from that of course, with websites. If you have a submission tab, again, learning management systems do that. Things like even Brightspace. Also, you can post materials. So if a student says they didn't get a handout, they can always go to the website. Or again, I'll reference learning management system. There's an advantage to doing this. They can just print it out or go back to it. You can also differentiate, if I can spit that out. You can tier assignments by posting different things and having supplements for students who may need things. Also, I think websites, and again, even learning management systems, if we're going to use that as a substitution for a website, they can organize and help with the management of sites. When I build sites, even with Brightspace, it really helps me because it makes me plan. It makes me organize. It makes me look at things. It makes me look at the materials that I'm putting up. I'm going to hold my phone up. That's right here. When I was a teacher and I had my website, and I'll show it to you here in a little bit. It's actually on this PowerPoint. I loved it because I would post everything on there and then I could just pull it up on my Apple TV because I could just mirror it. So I would use either my phone or my iPad, usually my iPad, my work iPad, and I could pull up things for students to see and we can mark on it and things like that. And of course, it could be a great websites. And again, your learning management systems can be great for communications, blogs, and announcements. So for students, it allows creative ways for students to collaborate and communicate on assignments and work, especially if you have like chat things and all that are built into there and some communications. Google Classroom, we're going to do that next week. But again, that's another learning management system. There's ways to collaborate and do assignments together. Also, it gives you that home base. So if a student is absent, they might be able to go to the website and get a lot of the materials that they missed. Again, I know this hasn't really officially died, so to speak, but I remember having to I'm pulled up a folder here. I remember used to having to put together folders and send home with a sibling or some friend that lived next to him for students to get this. Now you can electronically send it. It's beautiful. Or you can just post it. And of course, if you have a website, and again, I keep adding it, but I feel like I need to continue to do that. If you have a home base like a learning management system and it's kind of souped up, it makes your class kind of pop a little bit. It makes it look like it's a little more modern, which I think is a good thing. There are some advantages for parents too. It's again that home base, it's a place to check for information. Also, transparency. You're not trying to hide anything when you post things. And I think it also helps parents as a parent and someone who has worked with parents. I think it makes parents more on the ball to check and encourage them to know that the information is there. And if they can help their students out, like you can see what homework's coming up, or if there's a major assignment coming, you can post these on the website. You can say, hey, there's a test at the end of the week. I do this all the time, much to the annoyance of my child. I'll say, hey, I see you have an AP Gov test that's coming up on Thursday and it might be Monday when I ask them this. Have you already like started to put together some materials, a Quizlet, things like that to study? Usually he'll say yes, whether he has or hasn't, I guess. But it's still one of those things. It keeps me on the ball, and I think it's good. There's a lot of different types of websites that you can use. Again, I keep saying learning management system. We're going to steer clear of that for this assignment, but I think they do serve a similar purpose at this point. But Google Weebly and Wix, and also I don't have it listed on here. WordPress is also very popular. Um, they're all the ones that we're going to look at. One thing with this class that I will let you do, some weeks I'll give you a choice of which technology you want to do. I will usually focus on the one that I'm most familiar with and then say, this is how I do it. But if you are more familiar with this one or you want to give this one a try, go for it. There's usually going to be some checkpoints that I want to see in it. I said on here we're going to focus on Weebly and Wix. That's a lie because one thing I have noticed, especially since websites have not gone on, I'm going to show you Weebly because I'll be honest, I'm a fan. It's the one I used for National History Day for a long time. They've kind of moved away from that. Um, but I think if I was going to build a website now and I was a teacher, I think I would probably just use Google Sites because Google Sites is it's the easiest to use in my opinion. But I still kind of wanted to give you a little idea of what Wix and Weebly and how they operate, and I have those actually screenshots on this PowerPoint. They're kind of plug and play type websites where you take aspects and you drag and then you load the information. Uh, you know, this is Weebly actually account. They kind of word it different now. I need to update this PowerPoint, but it used to be if you did Weebly education, you would get like 24 free sites. Now you can just go to Weebly and make a free site, so there's not even a student thing. So this second statement is true. It's not called student anymore. This was my site when I was a middle school teacher. As you can see, I actually kind of floated between all three grades some years, so I kept my materials up. One crazy year, I had all of them. But I would have eighth grade, seventh grade, sixth grade, and everything was there. And anything like National History, History Bowl, announcements for parents. One year I taught language arts because I have an English minor and they were desperate for a teacher for one period. I would not consider that one of my strengths, but I did keep the site up because I had it. It was a home base for me also. And I knew where to find my materials. And what I was talking about with plug and play, and you kind of do this with Google, but I think Google's got it set up a little easier. You would take something like once you signed into Weebly, as you can see, move my face over here. There's like things over here, like a publish button. But once you created your account and you start to pick your template design, you literally would just take something like the title and you would drag it and drop it like right here where you wanted it. Or if you wanted a YouTube video, which I think is down in here. Oh, there it is. You would drag it and drop it. And then you would build from that tab on there. So if I put a title, I would drop it and there would be like a blank. And then I would type in Dr. Allen's social studies class. And that's kind of what I mean by plug and play. One thing I will say, we're going to probably use, I'm going to show you Google today, but if you do try to do one of these other ones, again, I think I said this in last week's video, you do not need to pay for any upgrades. And as you look here, they have these little lightning bolts. Those are upgrades. You have to pay a little bit for those. You only need free accounts in this class. Do not pay for anything. There's kind of what mine did. I kept my website kind of simple. Like when we would click, like that's, I think that's seventh grade social studies. I would load up PDFs because it was the one thing it seemed like everyone could open, and I would have them there. But when I was lecturing, I could easily click them. So, and this was the home page for Weebly. This was a sample. I actually would have my students, and that's what I've always told these classes before. If you don't want a website of your own, having students make websites is actually kind of fun. I think it makes them write, makes them edit, makes them be creative. We were talking about this. It's a form of communication because you're typing out information. What I actually did was like when I did sixth grade, World War One was a standard. I would have my students pick a topic in World War One. We would keep it pretty simple, but they would have to do an opening page. They'd have to do a brief bio on one page, and then they would have to do a video on another. And when I mean video, they have to put a YouTube video on there. So this was the opening page. So they had the home page. They put a little Snoopy GIF. I don't know if you're familiar with the Snoopy song, where he fights the Red Baron. And then they did a bio when you would click that. And then there was a little short History Channel YouTube video on it. So that's something I did, and I think the students liked it. I will tell you, I'm sure you've seen this from any of your field experience already. Sometimes when you do technology in the classroom, though, I would strongly suggest having a set of ground rules and being very organized and being strongly familiar with the technology yourself. Because some days, the first time you use a technology in the class, there's going to be a ton of questions. I'm going to be careful how I say this, but I think there's a little bit of a stereotype now where everyone just assumes every student is a technology whiz. That's not always the case. They may be awesome with phones. They may be awesome with Xbox or PlayStation. They may even be awesome with like, an Apple Watch, but they might not be awesome with like Word or PowerPoints or things like that. So especially if you're going off the beaten path with something like making a website. Samples are important. So what do you need to do this week? Well, you're going to make a website, and then we'll go from there. It is not going to be a complicated website, though. You're going to create a very short, small, brief website. You're going to put a title on it, like mine, where it had France and some sort of glitz. You're going to have a header. You're going to actually post a handout on the website or a link to it. And then you are also going to put a video up on it. I know it says Sakai. That was our old Brightspace system. I'll kind of get that in there. I'm going to stop there because I'm not going to get into e-planning. So let me get out of the screen and I'll show you what we're going to do. If I can get that. Boom. All right. Let me move this out of the way. All righty. If I was you, I'm not telling anyone what to do. If you are familiar with a certain type of website, if you've used WordPress before and you want to do the assignment with WordPress, that is 100% fine. Any website that you've used before, you can do. If you're familiar with Weebly, Wix, or any of those, go for it. But today, what we're going to do is simply this. I'm going to show you Google Sites, and then we'll go from there. Here's the assignment one more time, just to make sure. If I can get the directions. There it is. And of course, the down. But I'm operating on one screen. This is not one of my strengths. I'm spoiled with the multiple screens in my office sometimes. As you can see, you're going to create one of these accounts. You're going to make a title page. You're going to have a sub page, i.e., a second page besides the home page. And you're going to put something on there like a handout, a link, or something. And then you're going to have a video on it. I would like to have, if you want to just do the title page, the video, that's fine. I just want you to kind of play with it a little bit. I'm more about like seeing what you can do. If you want to go full creativity on these sites, please do. Sometimes I think making the sites is kind of fun. But let me just go ahead and show you what you're going to do. All right. If you go to Google and you can just type in Google Sites, you can also go up. Oh, I don't have it on here right now. Let's see. If you go right here to your little waffle, a lot of times you can see sometimes Google Sites does not always pop up on there. Oh, they're slides, not sites. But if you need to, all you need to do is type in Google Slide. You could just do Google. Actually, all you need is do it up here. Google Sites, and it should just take me right to it. And bam, there I am. As you can see, I've kind of done a few over the years recently. Let me go ahead and close that other one out. I got stuff open here. What I would like you to do for this week, you're going to hit blank site. You're going to name your page. So I'm going to do this. I'm just going to title it U.S. History until 1860. And I can even put on here it's awesome. Okay, that's nice. Now, if you look over here, there's all this little cool stuff over here. I can change my theme if I want. Let's change the color. Okay, so I just changed it. Nothing too fancy. I'm going to go back to here. This is how I insert things on this page. So I would like you to put some sort of image on here on your home page. So for this, you just need to go that, and we're going to select. Let's select something. You can load an image if you want. I mean, I'm fine with that. I'm just going to use Google Images though. I'm going to type in, let's say, George Washington. And we'll just hit that. And we'll return. And then I can move it around however I like. You can see. And there's my home. All right, there's my homepage. Awesome. Looks good. Looks like a class I'd want to take. Now, you need to add a second page. So you hit pages. As you can see, homepage is already there. You hit this button, you can do different things. You can add a new page. You can do a new link. You can embed something. You can do menu selection, hit new page. New page is, sorry, I was trying not to cough, or sneeze. Let's do homepage. Let's do videos. And we're going to hit done. So what are we going to do? We're on there. This page looks okay. It's kind of plain looking. So let's go back to insert on this page. You see how you can toggle from your pages. We can go from this one to this one. And whatever one you're on, you just hit insert and then you can add stuff. So we're going to go through and look. And you see there's all this other stuff. And excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. I don't want you to have to listen to that. Sorry, that was very weird. I know. I would like you to just hit a YouTube video. And if you hit a YouTube video, and you can see there's different ones on here. These are all ones that I have done before. You should be able to search. Let's do George Washington. And boom, it's on there. So you can move it over. If you want to add more to this page, that's fine. You can add buttons. So let's add a button, click. You know what? You can do that. Click here. You can do video. You can do maps. You can add sheets, anything from your Google you can put in there, but a button would be something like this. Let's do it this way. Click. here for George Washington bio. Then I would need to put a link there. Let's do this. Sorry for that sneeze, by the way. I was really trying not to do that. And I'm fighting another one. Told you these are one take. We're just going to use the good old Wikipedia. Oh, there it goes. And let's put that. Sorry, again, working with one screen is a little tricky. We're going to insert that. There it is. So I can move that right here if I want. There for the George Washington bio. If you could just put a couple things on this page, and then after you get your homepage made, your video or link or handout, something on here made, you hit publish, publish, and you should have it. It means it's been made. And what I would like you to do is hit right here. Let's see. You should be able to share with others. Okay, after you publish it, this is the big thing. You're going to go hit share with others. And as you can see, you need to make sure that it's my draft is make sure it is anyone with a link. You got to do that. And then just copy publish site link. That's what you're going to submit on Brightspace. If you want to take two screenshots, that's fine. Some people get frustrated with the links for some reason, which is fine. I'm not, it happens to everyone. You can take two screenshots as long as I can see that you created the website and as long as I can see it somehow. But if you want to just submit the link, that's what you do. And this is a big thing too. And I'll put this on the announcement. If you're submitting a link on Brightspace, you need to put it on a Word doc and submit the Word doc with the link. I don't think there's a spot to actually submit the link, at least unless something's been updated. But that is the assignment. That's what you're doing. You're going to make a website just as simple as that. It doesn't have to have a whole lot of information. Then, after all that's done, you're going to do the website. You're going to submit it here. You're going to review the website assignment. You can say thumbs up, thumbs down, didn't like it, don't think I would ever use it. It was interesting, but again, I think I'll use Schoology. Or I love the website. I'm going to make my students do it. Whatever. A couple sentences. Blogs, I do not comment on too much. You probably noticed that with week one. I feel like those are your opinions, and I'm really trying not to discourage them, whether you like something or not. It just gives me an idea of whether something's useful. Two, you're going to do, I'm sorry, this would be three. You're going to do your discussion board, which is up. Don't forget 150 words. This is our first one that's actually on the readings. This is on chapter one. Kind of have a choice there. It's about teachers being scared to fail. And I don't think that's just a teacher thing, but Miller talks about it, the author. So if you can, make sure you read chapter one, answer that question. There's also an Edutopia link there if you want to check it out on teachers and technology and learning. But so I guess that's the end of this week, this video. Website, submit link or screenshots on Brightspace so I can see it, do a blog review, and do the discussion. That's it. So it's all due next Sunday. That would be the March 8th. I think that's the 25th at 11:59. And that's it. Thank you very much. Sorry for the sneezing. I hated to kind of like fight that a little bit, but I wanted to get the video out. So enough rambling on my end. Hope you have a good weekend. I will talk to you later. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to stop by my office. So talk to you later. Bye.